There's nothing Hollywood loves more than a biopic. This has led to the creation of some really great films that capture the subject's life or personality, and other films that are just bad. Today we're going to look at some of the films Hollywood has offered us about their own. This one differs from others on our list in that George Raft supposedly had some involvement with the film, and by involvement, I mean one meeting. Made by Allied artists in 1961, the film focuses on Raft's life from the mid-20s to 1959. It's heavily sanitized, leaving out Raft's wife, Grace, and downplays Raft's mob connections. Ray Danton plays Raft, leaving a lot to be desired. He's far too tall and more classically handsome than Raft. However, the oddest casting of this film is Jane Mansfield as Betty Grable, renamed for the film to Lisa Lang. Although Mansfield received top billing for the film, she's only on screen for about 20 minutes. At one point, she gets thrown in the pool. As much as I love Jane, she's far too different from Betty to give any semblance of World War II's favorite pinup. She's too big in every way imaginable, perfectly exemplifying the 1950s ideal but far removed from the athletic Grable. She vacillates between playing the part straight and the cooing sex symbol we all know. Overall, I would rate the film at a 1.5 in terms of accuracy. While we're on the subject of Jane, we have to focus on the biopic made on her own life, the Jane Mansfield story. Starring Lonnie Anderson as Jane and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mickey Hargitay, the film is basically an acid trip. Lonnie's clothing is 80s caricatures of 50s clothing, resulting in an overtly sexualized Mansfield that I think even she'd be surprised by. The film was based on Martha Saxon's book Jane Mansfield in the American 50s, which happens to be my favorite Mansfield biography. The only thing the filmmakers grabbed from it was Mansfield's name. While Saxon's book is well researched and shows Mansfield in the context of her time, the film takes the bubblehead persona and assumes that's how Mansfield was for her entire life. The movie, however, doesn't claim to be great. It pretty much sets the tone with this.
Biloxi, Mississippi, June 28, 1967.
That damn spray machine's gonna keep us here all night.
No, it's not. Jane has to make that talk show.
En route to New Orleans on State Road 90 at approximately 2:25 a.m.
I think I'll give my opening stage lines from Rock Hunter. Little nostalgia.
An automobile accident took the life of
Will you step on it?
I can't see through that stuff.
movie star Jane Mansfield.
We're gonna be late.
Miss Mansfield was 36 years old.
Lonnie and Arnie have no chemistry together. Supposedly, Arnie was still learning English when the film was made, but I doubt it helped him perfect the language a lot. Overall, I would rate this film a solid 1 that's brought up to 3 just for the kitsch factor. I know there are at least 10 biopics about Marilyn, which really makes this a subject for another video. However, I'm going to spotlight 3, both versions of Blonde and The Secret Life of Marilyn Monroe. The only Marilyn biopic that's both directed and written by women, the film has relatively poor source material. However, Joyce Chopra brings out a great performance from Poppy Montgomery, while writer Joyce Ellison writes Marilyn as a three-dimensional person, or at least as much as she can when making a movie based off of Oates' one-dimensional novelization of Monroe's life. Some biopics are more about capturing the vibe of the subject, so while the accuracy of this film is about 1.5, I would still give it a 3. 21 years later, we got Andrew Dominik's hot mess of a film that's also based on Blonde. I'm not someone who subscribes to the idea that a man cannot make a good biopic on a female subject, but I feel like people who want to make that argument can easily use this adaptation as an example. The movie had everything going for it. A talented Latina actress playing an icon, an esteemed director, and Brad Pitt's Plan B entertainment. And then Dominic apparently decided to throw everything away and make a film that features a woman in near constant state of undress who constantly cries and gets victimized. I'm all for pushing the boundaries, especially with Marilyn fans, but at some point you need to see if your film is reflecting your subject or yourself. Bloated trauma porn that's going to be the only 0 on my list. This is probably the most accurate biopic on Marilyn, which is saying a lot, being the whole thing is based on a fictitious relationship with her mother, Gladys. The costuming is beautiful, and Kelly Garner captures the Marilyn vibe just like Poppy Montgomery had. Overall, I'd give this one a 3, but in the world of Marilyn biopics, it's a 5. I'm going to quickly take you back to 1965. Hollywood was in full Jean Harlow mode. Paramount had purchased the rights to Jean Harlow's life story around 1963 and finally come through with a film entitled Harlow. And then Electrovision saw the attention Paramount was getting for their upcoming release and quickly made their own film, also named Harlow. So we have 2 films of the same name from the same year. We'll start with the Electrovision film, being it was released first. Starring Carol Lindley as Harlow and an ailing Ginger Rogers as Mama Jean Bello, the film is an absolute mess that includes this weird storyline of Jean Harlow going back east to study acting on the advice of Marie Dressler. As bad as the Paramount film is, this one is in a weird way worse. I'm going to rate it a 0.25. I'm going to start by pointing out that this film's storyline is almost as bad as Electrovision's Harlow, but it's made slightly better by the fact that costume designer Edith Head made some magnificent pieces, while Carol Baker gives a good performance with a weak script. There's not a whole lot of factuality going on with this film, but at least Harlow doesn't have mythical acting classes on the East Coast, so I will rate it a 1 for accuracy and bump that up to a 2 due to Head's costuming. So, there are actually 2 Liz Taylor biopics, but the one from the 90s really isn't worth mentioning for anything beyond Montgomery Clift's Hawaiian print shirt when he tells Liz he's gay.
You're the girl, Bessie May. If anyone could have wooed me away from my wicked loving.
It doesn't matter. Whatever happens, I will always be here for you. Mama will always be here for you.
Liz and Dick, starring Lindsay Lohan and Grant Bowler, is a camp classic. Again, most fans are not looking for accuracy as much as they're looking for a vibe, and this one brings it as well as an accurate storyline in terms of biopic. Lohan plays Liz like a spoiled, petulant child, and in some ways in the 60s, Liz did behave like that.
I'm bored! I'm so bored!
Bowler plays Dick as a smoldering alcoholic, which Burton did act like that as well. However, what I think the film fails to do is push the envelope far enough. It's relatively subdued for how the couple was living, which makes the film flat in a lot of places. Given it's a Lifetime film, so I'm not expecting cinematic greatness, but when you're going to portray the world's most famous tumultuous love affair, it only feels right to make everything over the top. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 3 because I think it's accurate for the most part, and it's a pretty good movie if you can overlook its flaws. I'm just going to come out and say it. I love this movie. It doesn't matter to me that Ava Gardner was on Starlet in 1952 or that Dandridge's friendship with Marilyn Monroe is exaggerated. It's just a great film that obviously aims for accuracy in its storytelling. Halle Berry stars as Dandridge. She never falls into the trap of caricaturing the star. Instead, she creates a nuanced portrayal that would definitely land her an Oscar nomination if the HBO film had been released theatrically. Covering Dandridge's entire life, the film treats the traumatic episodes well and doesn't gloss over anything. Rather than painting Dandridge as a victim, the film centers on her strength and resolve to become an international star in a highly racist environment.
We're going to be staying in a hotel. It's just outside the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should probably use the service entrance when we come in here, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't talk to any of the patrons.
Just say it.
What?
You think I've never been to the South? can't stay in Miami Beach, I can't use the front entrance, and I can't speak to the patrons, right? This isn't a tan, Earl. I'm a Negro, a colored girl. You did happen to notice that, didn't you?
I noticed.
Now listen, if we're going to work together, you can't tiptoe around me. You have to say it straight out.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Come on, honey. Zip me up so I can run to the bathroom. Come on.
This is your bathroom. You told me to say it straight out.
I'm giving this one a 4. Although I normally focus on women, it's currently hard to discuss biopics without mentioning 2022's Elvis. Starring Austin Butler as the King, the film takes a different approach in that it focuses more on Colonel Parker's constant exploitation of the music icon rather than Elvis's life, although there are plenty of flashbacks.
Your future, Mr. Presley, blazing before you. Recording contracts, television, even Hollywood.
You're great, Colonel. You are the best person I could ever hope to work with. You blood-sucking old vampire. You bled me dry and you still want more?
The movie isn't exactly accurate, but what it lacks for in accuracy, it makes up for in capturing the essence of the men's one-sided exploitative relationship. Parker was constantly looking for ways to pull one over on Elvis to get more money, and Elvis trusted Parker without question most of the time. I know people weren't fans of Baz Luhrmann's modern scores and period pieces, but I find it works to push the story along. I'll give this one a 4. This is like the king, or should I say queen, of the biopics. It didn't attempt to paint the subject in a favorable light, nor did it change names that often. Director Frank Perry was determined to bury Crawford, and anyone who knows who she is will likely say something about wire hangers if her name gets brought up. I'm not comfortable weighing in on the accuracy of the film, minus pointing out that Christina Crawford never claimed the wire hanger story in her book. All I'm going to say on that is the truth is almost always in the middle. Faye Dunaway plays the part so over the top that it gets to a point where I personally tune her out. I know people love it, but it's not my cup of tea, minus this iconic scene.
Miss Crawford, we don't want any hard feelings.
You don't know what hard feelings are until I come out publicly against your product, and you'll see how much you sell.
Please, Miss Crawford. It's hardly necessary to make threats you surely don't mean.
Don't fuck with me, fellas! This ain't my first time at the rodeo.
Sometimes you're going to get a movie with a great actress on paper who just doesn't fit, and that's the case with Linda Carter as Rita Hayworth in The Love Goddess. Carter is absolutely gorgeous, but she simply doesn't have the movements that Hayworth did that are relatively feline when you watch them. That doesn't mean her performance is bad, but it comes across like Rita Hayworth getting played by Wonder Woman. It's probably best illustrated by the famous Gilda number that becomes ridiculously too long.
They had the earthquake in San Francisco back in 1906. They said that old Mother Nature was up to her old tricks. That's the story that went around, but here's the real lowdown. Put the blame on me, boy. Put the blame on me. One night she started to shim and shake. That brought on the Frisco quake. So you can put the blame on me, boy. Put the blame on me. There once was a shooting up in the Klondike, and they got dead in the groove. Folks were putting the blame on the lady known as Lou. That's the story that went around, but here's the real lowdown. on Maine. Maine did a dance called the Hitchy Coo. That's the thing that slew my groove. So you can put the blame on Maine, boys. Put the blame on Maine.
How'd you like that, Harry?
You out of your mind, huh?
Now, compare that to Hayworth's performance, which is understated and conveys a lot with a limited amount of movement.
When they had the earthquake in San Francisco back in 1906, they said that old Mother Nature was up to her old trick. That's the story that went around, but here's the real lowdown. Put the blame on Maine, boy. Put the blame on Maine. One night she started to shim and shake. That brought on the Frisco quake. So you can put the blame on Maine, boy. Put the blame on Maine. They once had a shooting up in the Klondike when they got Dan McGrew. Folks were putting the blame on the lady known as Lou. That's the story that went around, but here's the real lowdown. Put the blame on Maine, boy. Put the blame on Maine. Maine did a dance called the Hitchy Coo. That's the thing that slew my groove. Put the blame on Maine, boys. Put the blame on Maine.
The storyline, like almost all biopics, is all over the place. There's very little that's factual going on, and it falls into the very common trap of victimizing the subject because women were always weak even after they made it. This movie also gets a 1 for me. I really don't know how to describe this film. Nicole Kidman tries her best to play Grace Kelly, but beyond a white blonde woman, it really doesn't work. I love Kidman and I love Princess Grace, but these were two loves I never wanted to see interact at all, and I hope we never get it again. Kidman kind of plays Kelly in a Monroe vein with a breathless little girl voice that suddenly morphs into I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. It's wooden and trite, and it doesn't portray the real Grace Kelly's personality that was passionate and fun, but ultimately refined when the cameras were on. This flatness basically describes the whole script as well.
I was brought up to participate. My father would have been most upset to see someone without enthusiasm.
What really makes this film interesting is the behind-the-scenes drama. Filmed between September 2012 and January 2013, the film was originally intended as a theatrical release in the US. The film's distributor, Harvey Weinstein, made cuts to the film that were not approved by the director, Olivier Dahan. The film premiered in Cannes in 2014, as well as select markets with Weinstein's cuts. A full year later, the film was released to the US market through Lifetime, with writer Arash Amel noting that the Lifetime film was actually a third version. Luckily, the film was dead on arrival. Altogether, I give this one a 0.5 because it's not accurate and it's pretty boring. Biopics are Hollywood's bread and butter, but very rarely do they portray the subject in an accurate light. Do you have an accurate biopic you enjoy? Let me know in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe.